You start seeing this universe out there, galaxies and stars, that none of the sacred texts, and from any religion, predicted any of that. So religion was a way for primitive people to understand things they couldn't understand, right? You look around at the world, fucking crazy shit happens, people die, there's floods and what's going on? Well, there must be some angry fucker up there who sometimes is pleased, sometimes he's not pleased, and if we just behave in a certain way, like a father, maybe he'll stop punishing us and give us, candy and stickers, okay? Now, that's just my perspective. You don't necessarily have to buy into that, but if you're gonna believe this stuff about selfish genes, it's that we evolved just like any other species, and it had to do with fitness, genetic fitness, okay? So we're here for one purpose, and that purpose is to reproduce, to make babies, okay? Just like any other species, we are here to propagate, okay? Sex, however, fills many roles besides just propagation. What are the other roles? Okay, there are sub-purposes to sex. It feels good. It feels really good if you do it right. It creates and reinforces social bonds. In some ways, I think that's one of the more important purposes of sex, okay? Because males and females bond together over it very, very tightly, very closely. And as we've seen, that bond is important for the raising of the offspring, right? For having the little babies. And then ultimately it produces a baby. There's a great story in the movie Venus with Peter O'Toole. And he talks about, he has this young girl and he takes her, he's an old man, he's on his last legs, he's dying, he's had his prostate removed, he can't have an erection. And he's with this young girl, and he's in love with her. Takes her to an art gallery and they're looking at a French Impressionist painting of a nude of Venus. And she's this sort of full-figured, round girl laying down, and you can see her back, her ass, and her body. And he says to her, this girl is very young, and she's not secure in her body. She doesn't think she's beautiful. And so he says to her, this is the most beautiful thing most men ever see. And she says, really? Well, what's the most beautiful thing most women ever see? And he says to her, her firstborn child. Okay? Guys, that sums up the difference between men and women. We are driven by physical beauty. That's our goal. That's what we seek. Once we've had sex, we're ready to move on to another beautiful woman. And that's our genetic drive, trying to spread our genes. It's why human beings are so robust as a species. In Iowa, they have all these vast cornfields. All that corn is from one plant, okay? It's genetically homogeneous. And if a weevil or some kind of insect infects one of those plants, they lose the whole fucking crop, okay? Because there's no resistance, right? Whereas human beings, everybody's different, and that difference is because we have genetic diversity. Well, for the woman, her purpose is different. Her ultimate goal with sex, and it's subconscious, she doesn't know this. Not that she doesn't find it, not that guys don't like babies and women don't think men's bodies are beautiful, but it's not the ultimate purpose. A woman, her thing instinctually is for the baby, and this is why when a woman has her child in a marriage, she'll often stop having sex with the man. This is where a lot of marriages falter and fail. Sometimes for years, she'll stop having sex with the man. And that's because she is bonded now with the child. The man's needs are not important to her anymore. And the guy gets all pissed off, right? Well, you shouldn't get angry. You should just have sex with somebody else on the side. And the woman should understand that the man, we need to have sex. Men masturbate. They have to have ejaculations. I mean, it's unhealthy if they don't. At least 2 a week, or else it backs up and you have problems. Just like women menstruate, okay? It's basically the equivalent, okay? This is a biological need that men have and a biological need that women have. It's largely unconscious. We're not conscious of it. But I have to make you guys conscious of it, okay? To unplug from this fucking bullshit, the manipulation, and I want to get you guys off that blade of grass, okay? It's going to be shocking. It's going to be difficult. People are going to be like, they're not going to like it. It's like what they say in the Matrix, like, you know, after a certain point, after a certain age, we don't wake people up and they're dangerous if you wake them up. They, you know, they're unpredictable, and also anybody within the thing. It's a great metaphor for what's going on. How many of you have heard the allegory of Plato's cave? Yeah, you know that one. Okay, so it's a great one. I'll go through it really fast, but it's the idea that basically life is just a reflection, or reality is a bunch of guys chained up in a dark cave. There's a fire behind this puppeteer behind them, and he's doing this thing with shadows on the wall, and these people are chained, so all they can see are these shadows on the wall. And they're like, okay, well, that's our reality. It's this shadow play, okay? Well, one of these guys somehow gets loose from his chains, and he turns around, and he sees this fucker, you know, doing shadows. And he's like, fuck. And then he gets up and he goes out of the cave, and he's blinded. And he's like, God, there's this whole fucking world out there I've never seen before. And then he comes back down into the cave, and these fuckers are still chained up, watching and trying to predict what the shadows are going to do and stuff, right? And he goes, guys, there's this whole thing, and there's this dude with and they're all, what do you think they say to this guy? Yeah, he's fucking insane. Okay, they're going to try to kill him because he's a danger. Okay, and this is an old allegory. This is Plato. The Greeks sort of had this figured out, that there's different ways of interpreting reality. All right, so we keep going. Have you guys heard of the book Sperm Wars? Okay, so Sperm Wars is a book that came out back in the mid-90s. And basically they did some research on male sperm. You know what they found out? Less than 1% of your sperm is for fertilization. The other 99% of it is to kill the sperm of other men. Well, why the fuck would that have evolved? What does that tell you about human nature? About monogamy or polyamory? About our drive to have multiple sex partners, women and men. Not just men, women and men. Because the women are out having sex with multiple guys. Why is that advantageous to her? We're going to talk about that in a sec. Cuckolding. You know what cuckolding means?
Cheating.
I don't like the word cheating. But yeah, I mean, that's in popular culture. If you think about the word cheating, that's a loaded term.
Sure,
it's
sure.
not, no, it's okay though, because I'm glad you used it. It's a loaded term because it assigns, all of a sudden now she's a whore because she cheated on you. You see what I'm saying? And we're going to talk about the Madonna whore thing in a second. Again, I'm going through this stuff really fast. It's going to take a long time for all this shit to really sink in for you guys. It's taken years for me. And that's why I did the outline, so you can kind of keep going back to this. This is a mind fuck. I'm basically mind fucking you. It is. But it's to try to, I got to unplug. All right, so cuckolding is when a woman who's married or has a spouse and has a child with this guy who's a provider, who's making money and taking care of the child, goes outside of the marriage, has sex with a guy, gets impregnated, and then brings that child back and tells her provider that it's his child. Okay, it's called cuckolding. There have been DNA tests and studies done at random. I think this was done in Australia a few years back, and this is in Sperm Wars, and also another great book called The Mating Mind. 10 to 20% of siblings in families are not genetically related, or only half siblings, okay? And yet, they think that they're really full brother and sister, or brother and brother, okay? Only the woman knows for sure.